Hi, Shelley. How are you?
Hi, Vishen. It's so good to see you again.
So I quote you a lot, Shelley, because there was that conversation we had in Hawaii in January this year when I asked you for your number one parenting tip. And I remember I had my iPhone out and I told you, give it to me in 2 minutes. I want a brief little nugget I can share with my list. And what Shelley said, folks, was so profound that it changed the way I parent. And it was all about how parents need to be careful about the beliefs that their kids unconsciously take on. And that's the most important thing. And so the focus of this conversation with Shelley is going to be on beliefs. And also I want to add, Shelley, that your husband, Morty, who did a training on this on the same platform, he is thus far one of our top 3 best rated trainings out of something like 30 which are on the platform right now. So Morty did an amazing job. So Shelley is Morty's wife, and both of them are this unstoppable couple that's just changing the way people view beliefs about themselves and about the world, and teaching others how to make sure that as you're going through life, you don't just have good beliefs, but you're raising kids with healthy beliefs. So Shelley, I ask this question to everyone who comes on this program, and the question is, what gets you out of bed every morning?
It's an awesome question. So for me, there is nothing greater than being able to be in life free to express yourself. So I think a lot of people spend their lives trying to please other people, doing what they think people want them to do, and not really ever experiencing how to be fully yourself, how to be fully expressive. Say what you think, say what you feel, obviously in a way that doesn't hurt others. Go for what you want in life. Take chances, take risks. And about 30 years ago, I started working with people, which I know we'll talk about later, who are filled with negative beliefs, which we all are, and they stop us in life. And so when my husband first created this process, it suddenly occurred to me in working with people in their pain and suffering all day, if we could raise a conscious generation of children who don't have all these negative beliefs, the world would change. It wouldn't matter who's in office. It wouldn't matter. You wouldn't have warlords, because we would kill off that generation and the next generation would be different.
And we understand that our beliefs are not absolute truth. They are relative truth. They are truth to us. But because they are relative, as Ken Wilber says, we have no business planting them on our children as absolute truth.
Well, I think you may know that your beliefs are not true, but deep down inside, a belief is a statement about reality that you believe is the truth. So it's really like being pregnant. You either is or you ain't. And we might know, yeah, I know that mistakes and failures are important and you have to be innovative, but I'm so afraid to make them, because down deep inside, the truth is you still believe mistakes and failures are bad.
So you said you were going to tell us about 2 magic principles that keep our parenting on track at all times.
And this is so perfect because I'm in Hawaii at the home of my daughter and my two-year-old grandson. So I'm just watching this whole thing in action. A great example, and then I'm going to tell you the principles. Last night, I was babysitting with him. He was happy as a clam. We left a party. I brought him home. Time to go to bed. Hysterical crying. I want mommy. I want daddy. Blake said, if he cries, just call me. I'll come home. So I said, okay, I've put him to bed before, but I tried to calm him down. He was sobbing. They came home. So here's the point. Children, what is the one-word question, Vishen, that every little kid asks all day long? So if you tell a little 2-year-old or 3-year-old, you can't do that, what do they want to know? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why is the sky blue? Why can't I have dessert? Why won't you play with me? Why? They're always asking the question, why? Why did mommy and daddy come home because I was crying? I must be important.
Mm-hmm.
Or why didn't they come home? Now, not from one time, but if every time he cries, he doesn't get what he needs, which is usually attention or a connection to his parents, he's going to ask, why? I must not be important. So it breaks down very, very, very simply that the number one tip that I ever give parents is when your child walks away from you, ask yourself the question, what did they just conclude? Did they walk away saying, I'm a winner or a loser? Did they walk away saying, I made a mistake and I learned something? Or, oh, mistakes and failures are bad. So that's principle one, and I hope we'll get to elaborate on that. Principle two, we want to fix it as parents. We want them to stop crying. We want them to eat. We want them to get into the bath. We just want to fix whatever it is that's going on. And my question is, at what cost? So if you say to your child, you have to do this because I said so. That's why. Child's going to say, wow, I have to do it because she said so? And they hear that enough, I'm powerless.
Uh-huh.
When you dominate your children, you may get them to do what you want them to do. But the cost is they will conclude things like, I'm powerless. What I want is not important. I have to do what others want me to do. Those are not beliefs you want your children to have. So instead of saying, you have to go to bed right now, it's 7 o'clock, you can say to a child, Vishen, I know you don't want to go to bed. It's not fun. You want to stay up and play all night. But I love you. You need to grow strong like mommy and daddy. So you have to go to bed. But if you don't want to go to bed at 7, what time do you want to go to bed? And he'll say 12 o'clock. And you say, well, that's too late, sweetie. But how about 7:15? Or he'll say 7:30 and you say 7. And you make it so that it's not a big deal. But he walks away with power. And I will tell you something. The more power a child has, the less they need to test the universe to see if they have it. So at what cost do you want a rebellious child who's going to get to high school and say, oh yeah, watch this? Or do you want a compliant child who goes to school going, okay, I'll smoke pot, I'll have sex that's unprotected.
Wow, that's a big, big, big insight. It occurs to me that for most of the world, for most of the last couple of 100 years, we've been talking about raising obedient children. But there's a cost to raising obedient children.
I work with so many women who can't stand up for themselves, who stay in abusive relationships because they have these beliefs, I'm powerless, or what I want is not important. So they give up, even half of them don't even know what they want. So the cost is you get what you want now, interimly, and ultimately, you have a child on your hands who's either compliant or rebellious, as opposed to raising a child who knows how to look internally and make decisions based on what you have modeled as a parent.
I see. So what this means, the big epiphany I'm getting over here is that it's not about making your kid obedient, teaching your kid good behaviors that you think are good. It's about making sure your kid has good behaviors, but at the same time making sure that the child also has good beliefs and being very conscious of the question why that the kid is asking in their brain, and making sure that you're parenting on two levels, the conscious level, but also the level of beliefs.
Totally. I just have one little tweak. May I?
Yes, please.
I'm going to tell you a secret. So this is a great tip. If you want to be a more effective parent, get rid of 4 words: good, bad, right, wrong.
And why is that?
First of all, they're totally subjective. If you tell me you did a good job, I have no idea what that means. If you said to me, You made the bed and you fluffed your pillows? You put all your toys in the toy box? Now, first of all, you're not creating an approval junkie because they're saying to themselves, wow, I did a good job. It's not constantly needing that from you, right? Number two, their judgments. And I can talk to you for the next hour on nothing more than judging, because it is the single thing that destroys our children. Is that good, bad, right, wrong? So now they're in life going, is that good? Is that bad? Is that right? Is that wrong? By whose standards are we judging? As opposed to giving feedback that's concise and clear. I want you to go to bed, not because I want you to be a good little girl. I want you to go to bed because it's what you need to do, because I'm concerned about your health. We need to get out of the house in the morning because mommy needs to go to work. And I validate their feelings. I know you'd rather sit and play with your whatever, but we need to get out of the house. Come on, let's get in the car and play a game.
Mm-hmm.
So I have millions of examples of how to use the skills and tools that I teach. But today I wanted, and I know this is what you want, to talk about the principles. So if you say to a kid, that's good, when the kid doesn't do that, what do they say to themselves if they do something different?
That's bad. But Shelley, but that seems challenging. I mean, when my son does his homework on time and I tell him, Hayden, I'm so proud of you. That's so great. You did your homework on time. What could possibly be wrong with that?
Everything.
Really?
And I'll tell you,
okay.
Yes. Who cares about you? He needs to be proud of himself. You need to be proud of him on every level because he is, because he's a human being. Every client, I feel like every third client has the belief what makes me good enough are my achievements. And pretty much every other one has the belief what makes me good enough is having other people think well of me. So now you're terrified to speak in front of people. Like I look at you, you are the most natural speaker. There's no fear. You just express yourself. Do you know how many millions of people will not do that? They're terrified.
But why is that? Why are these people terrified? Because
there are 11 beliefs that they have, and I can name them, but I don't know that it's important, that there's so much I want to say, but I want to go back. I want to make this point because it's so important.
Yeah, because this is astounding to me because this challenges a fundamental truth, I believe.
Yeah. So if you tell me you're proud of me, you are giving me the message that I'm here to live up to your expectations. So now I just gave up my entire life because you may not want me to be what I'm passionate about. You may not want me to go for it in life. You may want me to play it safe. But if I'm here to live up to your expectations, guess what? The minute I leave the house, Vishen, I'm here to live up to everybody's expectations. Every single person who has a fear of public speaking has a fear of not living up to expectations. Now, not living up to expectations isn't what causes the fear in the child. It's losing the love of the person on whom their survival depends. Now, you get that?
Yes.
Because they feel unloved when you are not proud of them. And being unloved by the person on whom your survival depends is terrifying. But it's like Pavlov's dog. Every time not living up to an expectation is present, so is feeling unloved by the person on whom your survival depends. Okay? So every time this is present, this is present. So now you feel fear. You think this caused the fear when not living up to an expectation never caused your fear. The perceived threat to your survival did. Either I'm going to get hit or withdrawn from.
Right. And all of these are unconscious. We don't realize that we've picked this up from childhood. So,
totally.
So here's where I'm a little bit lost right now. How then do I create good behavior in my kids? And I know good and bad.
You got to lose good behavior.
Okay. So wait, Shelley. I want to ask you a practical question. This is the big challenge I have with my 8-year-old son. He doesn't eat his meals on time. So we'll put him down for dinner at the table, and he'll want to go off. He'll run off and go play with his Legos. We'll sometimes tell him, Hayden, you want an extra 20 minutes? No problem, but you got to eat. And then we put him back in front of his plate, and he will sit there staring at his food for 45 minutes. And it absolutely drives me and my wife nuts. And that is the one source of frustration we have as a family, Hayden's refusal to eat. So how would we as parents deal with something like that?
Okay, great. I'm going to answer that, but I want to finish that last piece because I want to tell people how you do handle it, and then I will answer that.
Great.
And forgive my passion. This is what gets me out of bed.
No, I love your passion. I love how passionate you are about these topics.
So my husband sat down with my girls when they were, I can't remember how old they were, but I think 7 or 8 and older. And you have to live consistently with this. He sat them down and he said, you are not here on this earth to live up to our expectations. You are here to do your life. We are here to guide you and keep you safe until you can do that on your own. We are your guardian angels. We're not the boss. Now, that's my piece. We're not the boss, okay? And what I have found is if you get trained as a parent to use powerful skills and tools, your kids will be more cooperative, not less, because they have nothing to bang against. Now remember, I am here to make sure that you are not hurting yourself, another, or something. It's not arbitrary. It's not, I don't like what you're wearing. Now you can say, I don't feel comfortable with you going out in a skirt that's short, or I don't feel comfortable because it doesn't feel safe to me, but just, I don't, you're going to eat when we say to eat. So here's what you do. First tool, give information. So you have an 8-year-old son that's very cognitive already. And you sit down and you say, now I'm very big on family meetings, and I don't have time to explain everything I'm very big on, but family meetings. And you sit down and you say, I have a problem. Mom and I have a problem. We love you more than life itself. And we know, because we're older and we've learned a lot more, we've been around for a long time, that food nourishes your body. And if you don't eat well, that leads to disease. It's not good for you. So I don't want you to eat when you're not hungry, but how can we work? So if you had a child and your child didn't eat, and you knew that that child later on down the road might get sick, what would you do? I need your advice.
Wow. That actually sounds like it might work.
And, if it doesn't work, you try something else. If it does, so what's in that? So you would always say to him, you know what? Don't eat. I think parents do not like children to suffer consequences. And they don't want to see their children suffer. Now, you're not going to let your kid get rickets or scurvy,
right,
but it will never get to that point. We took a chance. I have 3 stories. I'm only going to tell you one. Morty, my daughter kept asking for sugar. And finally he said, you know what? I am really tired of this conversation. I don't want to eat what you're eating. I want dessert. So he said to me, Shelley, let's try an experiment. Now, anytime you try an experiment, you can always pull it off because it's an experiment. So let's let her eat whatever she wants. Now, I don't have junk food. I'm not a junk food mom. But let's let her eat whatever she wants. And in those days, I had ice cream because Morty used to eat ice cream in those days. That was the only thing I really had. And let's let her eat whatever she wants. So I said, I think she's too young. She was like 5. And he said, maybe 6. And he said, no, let's trust her. And this is the most important thing, guys, about what I'm saying. You must learn to trust your kids. So we sat her down. We said, Blake, here's all we believe about health and wellness. Now it's up to you. You don't want to eat what we're eating. You can go in. You can make whatever you want. So she did. And the first morning she wakes up, she had ice cream for breakfast. So I went in, I pulled my covers over my head, and I said, I'm not dealing with this. I said, Morty, you deal with this. The next day, she had her regular breakfast. That night at dinner, she said, I want ice cream. I said, fine. By the third or fourth night, we took her to the movies, and we were coming home from the movies, and she said, I think I want to call off the experiment. And we said, how come? She said, I think I'm eating too much sugar, and I think I need you and Daddy to tell me no right now. And I thought to myself, I was right. She was too young for that kind of responsibility. But he was right to trust her.
I see what you mean. And as you're explaining this, I'm noticing a pattern. It starts with not deciding that any particular thing is good or bad. Giving the kid information. So if the kid refuses to comply with what you believe is the correct way for the kid to live a healthy life, you give the kid information, the nutrition of food, the reason he needs 9 hours of sleep a night, information, scientific information. And then the third one is you ask the kid for feedback. You ask them, what would you do in this situation, in a very respectful way, which I believe empowers them. But
totally.
But here's the part that gets confusing, right? But when we're giving the kid information, how do we know the information is correct? What about religion and propagation of religion? I mean, the message is that that we have to do certain things because this is the way it's always been done. And what happens when the kid rebels against that? What happens when a Hindu kid, because I experienced this when I was a kid, tells his mom, why is it that I cannot eat a beef burger? So how would we deal with situations like that? And I know I'm treading on sensitive ground, but the people who are listening, but the people who are listening, this is not going to be a public interview. This is a very select group of my top students. So I want you to know this is not a public interview, and I know it's treading on controversial ground, but I think people would love to know the answer.
So everything I say is age appropriate. So you talk to a 3-year-old different than an 8-year-old, different than an 11-year-old. When it comes to religion, there's two things that happen. And again, what I say, Vishen, I work with people, and most of the people I work with are not severely dysfunctional. I mean, the worst I work with is chronic depression. So most people are everyday people like you and I. And when they were forced to go to church and they were forced to do things, they ended up rebelling later against the religion. When they had choices, see, I'm a very big believer in choices, only where this safety is not involved. Now, you might say as a family, we go to church. There are certain religions, Jehovah's Witness, what's the other one? Went out of my head. Catholicism. The beliefs that children form in those learning environments can be very destructive. So you need to know as a parent, what is your child learning in that environment so that you could be responsible that your child doesn't grow up with a fear of God, believing that if you put yourself first in life, you're selfish. All these beliefs that you learn in the religion. So you have to be careful about that because a child takes the belief and runs with it. They take it forever and always, and I could never do that, as opposed to, oh, that's a good value. Because religion wants to teach values, they don't always do it in a good way. Now, if you feel strongly as a parent and the child is rebelling, and this is, again, one of my best principles I can give you as a parent, get to the source of the problem. And I'm giving you all my goodies that I usually kind of save. Get to the source of the problem. Why? Not why. I never ask why because why is meaning, and Vishen knows how the left coast feel about meaning. What? See, if you ask them, why don't you want to go to church? Because I hate it. that tells you nothing. Why do you hate it? I don't know. But if you ask what questions, what is it about going to church that you don't like? What would make it a better experience for you? How about if after church we go out as a family for ice cream? Make it a little more enticing for the child. But you don't know that the Sunday school teacher isn't molesting your kid. So you can't just assume they hate it because they're kids. Get to the source of it. What is it that you don't, it's only for an hour and it's only once a week. And I always say to parents, choose your battles. If religion is your battle, then you take a stand and say, in this family, this is what we do. When you're 18 years old, you could do anything you want. But as a family, this is our together time. This is our prayer time. This is our spiritual time. Problem is, for most people, it's showing up and looking good time. I have religious families, and I'm not going to mention the religion, where on the way to church, the father was bashing people and calling racial slurs. But when he got to church, the family looked perfect. So if you're going to really embrace religion, it should matter to you. You shouldn't be doing it simply because your parents did.
Right. But I think at the same time, many parents do not understand the huge negative impact that forcing religion on their kids can have. I'm a big proponent of cutting the line. Your religion should not be imposed on your child at all, in no circumstances at all. My child gets to choose what he believes, and he knows Santa isn't real, but he chooses to believe in Santa because he's been trained to understand that beliefs are swappable, that you can choose to believe something for fun. But he's questioned God. He explained to me, he asked me, why do we celebrate Easter? And I told him, well, it's because Jesus Christ was born. Jesus Christ died and he came back to life on this day. And my son said, no, I don't think he came back to life. People can't do that. I think they saw someone else who looked like Jesus and they mistook him for that person. And I thought, well, that was pretty good. And I said, Hayden, look, you can totally believe that. And maybe that's true. But we still want to celebrate Easter because it's so much fun. But I want to share with you.
I have my opinion out of that, but I agree with you.
Okay. But here's why. Here's why I believe that. It's because of damage that I went through loving family members who raised me with certain Hindu beliefs. So Hinduism is the religion I grew up in. I'm Indian, of course. And about 1 billion Hindus, 1 billion Indians, I think 800 million are Hindus. Now, there are many beautiful things in all religions, as there is in Islam and Christianity and Judaism. But Hinduism has a particular idea called karma, which says that good things that happen to you happen because you were good in a previous life. Bad things happen because you were bad in a previous life. I have this distinct memory of childhood where I was eating meat. And I was a kid. I was maybe 4 or 5. And I had an aunt, a loving family aunt, feeding me. And she was a vegetarian. Many Hindus are vegetarians. And it's a beautiful, beautiful belief. But I remember she telling me, you shouldn't be eating meat. And I go, why? And she goes, because of karma. That chicken that you're eating, you've killed a chicken. And this means in your next life, you might be a chicken and someone might kill you. And that so messed me up as a kid that I started believing that every bad thing that happened to me was because I did something bad in my past life. And I felt powerless. If I fell off my bike and scraped my knee, I was thinking, oh my God, in my past life, I must have injured someone. And it made me feel so powerless because I felt I could not protect my life. Bad things were going to happen as a surprise from a higher power because of some crap I did in my past life. That feeling of powerlessness really affected me for a lot of my childhood until my parents gave me the freedom to question my religion. And people have heard that story, but what happened was the first McDonald's opened in my city, and I wanted to try that beef burger. And I asked my mom, why can't we try a beef burger? And she said, maybe you can. Your dad eats beef. Why don't you? So I asked my mom, why can't we eat beef? And she goes, I don't know. Figure it out. So I went and I did all this research on Indian history, and I figured out why the cow was something that couldn't be eaten. And I told my mom, look, 1,000 years ago, it didn't make sense to eat the cow because you could use the cow to plow your field. You could use the cow for leather. You could use the cow for milk. You could eat other more useless animals. But today, we have dogs. and milk comes from a grocery store. So I think I want to eat the beef burger. And my mom said, that's fine. And when my parents gave me permission to question, I questioned everything. And by the time I was 19, I decided I wanted nothing to do with religion. Now, today my beliefs are different. Today, I still do not have a singular religion. Rather, I hack religion. I take the best beliefs from Christianity, from Islam, from Judaism, from Hinduism, from Buddhism, and I've created my own religion. But I really sincerely believe, and I know some people will dislike me for this, that no person has the right imposing religion on their children. Absolutely not, in no circumstances. Your child's beliefs are not something you can manipulate.
That was a Shelley rant. I do that.
Well, it's because as you're telling me this, I got angry thinking about what I experienced as a child, and I never want my kid experiencing it. But your thoughts on that, because the thing is, one of the things you said was very important. Give your kid information. The information has to be scientific.
That's the point. Religion is not questioned. So I was raised, we're holiday Jews. It's called. We have nothing to do with the religion, but we celebrate the holidays.
Right.
And my father was once eating a ham sandwich. And my best friend went to Hebrew school. I said, Mom, can I go to Hebrew school? She said, sure. So I went for 1 year. That was it. And I came home and I was hysterical crying. I said, Daddy, you're going to get trichinosis and you're going to die. That pig rolled in the mud. And they taught it to us exactly as you said, that pigs roll in the mud and then they take them out and they cut the meat and ship it to you. This was nothing about cleaning it and government inspection. It was like thousands of years ago. That may have happened. Maybe they hosed it down. But today it's so different. And we do not question. We just believe that which we are taught. And I don't want to go into religion more. But I just think, I'll cut it back. How's this? Forcing your child to do anything short of running into the street, or not running into the street, will generally backfire. And I want to go back to something you said. I really want to smash this idea that there is good behavior and bad behavior. One of my favorite examples of how to be a conscious parent. My little Vishen is 5 years old, and we take him to a restaurant, and he starts running around the restaurant. And most people say, Vishen, get over here, sit down. You're in a restaurant. That's bad behavior. Now watch what's possible. Vishen, come here. Sweetie, I know you're 5 years old and full of energy, and it's so hard to sit still. But you can't run around the restaurant because it disturbs people. People came out for dinner, and they want to have a nice, relaxing dinner. So it's not okay to disturb their dinner. Let's play a game at the table. And I have games like you can play same and different, where you put the salt shaker and the pepper shaker, or you put two things on the table and you say, what's the same? You'll love this, Vishen. Possibilities, right? What are possible ways to, and then you come up with cross a bridge. And you go around as a family. And the first round or two is the typical stuff. Then the kid has to break out of their box. What are possible ways to anything? And they come up with these great ideas, and you're helping them look at possibilities. But you have told them why it's not okay to run around a restaurant. It is never about behavior. It should always be about you're disturbing people, you're breaking somebody's stuff, you're waking people up. So if you give information about what it's not, I'm the father and I think you should behave. See, you know what motivates most people, most parents?
What?
The single thing that motivates most parents, worrying about what other people are going to think of them.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't care about half the things they care about if they didn't think people wouldn't think well of them. And the belief is what makes me good enough is having other people think well of me. See, I'm not good enough gets formed in the first 6 to 8 years of life from having your child think that they didn't live up to your expectations, therefore they must not be good enough.
Uh-huh. And you know what, Shelley? What you just said, the bringing your child back to the table example reminds me of what you said earlier in the conversation about your husband Morty's conversation with your kids when they were 7 or 8, about being a guardian angel and teaching a child, your parent's job being to teach a child what is good, to teach a child what is safe and to, teach a child to not harm and inconvenience other people.
What works and what doesn't work.
Right, exactly. And so
what's safe and what's not safe. What harms, what doesn't harm.
Right.
Brilliant.
So you're not saying running around the restaurant is bad. What you're saying, running around the restaurant does harm the peace and quiet that other people want. And that is your job as a parent. I love that. I want to have a conversation with my son now because he just turned 8 a few weeks ago and give him that freedom and give him that liberty and let him know that I'm simply here to help guide him to not hurt other people and to keep him safe.
My daughter Brittany was, when she was born, Vishen, she was one of these Miss No. Whatever I said, no. Right? No. And she went to an alternative school where there were no grades, no tests, and no homework. Okay? And people used to always say to me, what's going to happen to your kid when she gets into the real world? I said, I don't know. And I didn't know. And I was concerned, let me tell you. But she had a teacher who said, I spend a good portion of my day trying to move Brittany's energy from here to here and having her think it was her idea. Mm-hmm. I said, that's what I spent that money on. Because I have a child. People say, well, how are you going to get motivated if you don't tell them what to do and push them to get good grades? Well, I'll tell you, my daughter went to one of the top 10 best universities in the country and ran a half Ironman. But here's the most fabulous thing about her. She doesn't talk about it. She never tells people where she went to school, and she never tells people that she did a half Ironman unless it's appropriate in a certain kind of conversation. I never heard her say that.
Because she doesn't need the validation.
Exactly. It's not who she is. Her belief, I told my kids, and this is for me one of the best tips I will give you. We are human beings. We are not human doings. What I love about you, Vishen, what immediately brings tears to my eyes, your vision of making the world a better place, that you care deeply about people, that you are motivated to create what you're creating out of a true spirit of wanting to help and empower people, that moves me. I am not impressed with how much money you have. When you talked about the kind of company I missed, unfortunately, at the last meeting that Vishen and I would have been at together, my girlfriend said, if Vishen is doing what he says he's doing with his business, he could revolutionize business by being kind to your workers, by allowing your workers autonomy, by having them feel like it's a family. That's what I respect and admire, not how many people you have on staff or how much money you make. And at your funeral, nobody talks about your GPA. Nobody talks about whether you were a straight A student. Nobody talks about how much money you had or how many companies you had. They talk about who you are. That you could humble yourself in front of me and say, I learned something that can make me a better parent. That's awesome. So when your kids, you want your kids to have the belief, I'm okay. I'm good enough. I don't have to jump through a hoop. I don't have to do anything. I just am. Now the kid feels free to be who he wants to be or she wants to be. So stop making such a big deal about their grades because there is no correlation, and you know this, There is no correlation between how kids do in school and how successful they become later on in life. None. Okay? And start acknowledging who they are. You know, my eyes light up when you walk into a room. You fill the room with your joy. I love being with you. You're a joy to be with. I love how kind you are to your baby sister. I love how I saw the way you ran in to help mom. That was so thoughtful. Acknowledge how they be, not who they are, because I'm going to tell you the result of what makes me good enough are my achievements, workaholism. I'm not good enough. I believe this. Now I'm in life. Somebody says to me, "Oh, Vishen, you have 200 people in your company and you did that? Wow." All of a sudden, I feel good enough. So I conclude, I guess what makes me good enough are my achievements. Now I got a beach ball called I'm not good enough. As long as I'm achieving, it's underwater. But you have no choice. It's driven. You have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And I work with people every day who are workaholics who say, "Shelley, I don't know my kids. My wife's ready to divorce me. I'm worth millions of dollars. When is it going to be enough?"
You're right. Because our entire society is groomed to, what you just said I thought was really profound and controversial. Who gives a damn about good grades? There is no correlation. Last week, Ernst & Young, the massive global accounting firm, just made a bold announcement that they're no longer looking at grades in terms of their hires. And they employ tens of thousands of people. I shared that on Facebook, and it was crazy how viral that went. It got something like 3,000 comments because everyone knows this, but we do it anyway. As parents, we're going to end up pushing our kids to get good grades. And I realized that I'm doing that right now. So I love this conversation because I'm beginning to see so many gaps in what I'm doing, despite what I know.
See, and why do you do it, Vishen? Because if somebody has the belief, what makes me good enough are my achievements, your kid becomes your achievement.
Yes, absolutely.
Why else would you scream at a 4-year-old on the soccer field who's not paying attention?
Right.
Why would you care? It's insane.
Wow, that was a major epiphany. So I want to go on to something else you said you were going to talk about. The need to raise a child in the information age who is innovative, not wedded to the right answers.
I got a lot of validation on that because I'm reading Bold.
Right,
which
by Peter Diamandis. Right, Peter's going to be coming on and doing an interview here as well.
Fabulous. Now, there are 2 beliefs that keep children from being innovative. Now, again, I'm going to talk about, maybe not today, but I will at something else Vishen and I are doing together. So, wait, let me just think for a second, because I want to put this succinctly. The way a belief gets formed, I have to tell you, the way a belief, and this is what makes my work different than anybody else's. The reason people do 400 self-help courses and sit in therapy for 20 years is because they still think that they saw their belief in the world. Now, you happen to be a very dynamic, powerful person who could plow through his beliefs. And sometimes I hear you say that and I go, oh God, because most people can't. And I'll tell you why. So I'm going to tell you the 2 beliefs that keep people from being innovative are mistakes and failures are bad. And if I make a mistake or fail, I'll be rejected. Now, most people have read some business book or heard somewhere, Richard Branson says, if you're not failing a lot, you're going to be mediocre. Because if you're not failing, you're doing what you did yesterday, and you're never going to be successful doing what you did yesterday. Now I'm going to step on another sacred stone. School. I got 95 questions right. And I get back my paper and all I see are 5 red X's. School, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the owners of Google, were quoted as saying, "We wish we could start our own schools because kids come out of school afraid to make mistakes and fail, and you can't work for Google if you're afraid to make a mistake and fail." Okay? So parents have to be very careful. Now, you don't have to be crazy like I am. My kids would make a mistake and I would say, ding, 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 learning opportunity. So when my daughter was 9 years old, Vision, she turns around and she says to me, "Mom, it's getting old. I got it." I got the message. But I so did not want her to grow up with that belief. Now, Morty would always say, "What happened? What was the consequence of what happened? What did you learn? How could you do it differently next time?" And if you learn something, the new motto in Silicon Valley, fail often, fail fast, and fail forward. We live in a different world. Everybody, listen to me. We do not live in an industrial society anymore, where if you're in a factory and you make a mistake, you screw up the assembly line. We live in an information age. We live in a place where things are happening. What's true today is going to be totally not true tomorrow. So if we could teach our children to be learners, you make a mistake, you fail. You know, I even love Tony Robbins says there's no such thing as mistakes and failures. There's only outcomes. That's what my children's school said. There were outcomes. It worked. It didn't work. You hurt somebody. You didn't hurt somebody. You lost money. You made money. Let's look at the outcome. Look at what we learned and fail forward. Move forward. As children, so that's what keeps children from being innovative, the fear of making a mistake and failing, and the beliefs, I'm not good enough. So if your kid makes a mistake and you yell at them or scold them or punish them, the message is mistakes and failures are bad. If I make a mistake or fail, I'll be rejected, sent to my room, and I'm not good enough because I probably should have been able to do it. And they have a fear of criticism and judgment, not living up to an expectation, and rejection. Going back to not living up to an expectation. If you're afraid of not living up to an expectation, you're not going to be innovative.
Beautiful. I like that.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes,
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say fear of failure is one of the biggest things holding back so many of us. It's just drummed into us that we should not fail.
That's right. From industrial thinking people.
Now let's go on to how do we keep our kids focused on their goals and their truth rather than succumbing to what others want, and how do we help our kids stop worrying about what others think?
Well, there's two things. I'll answer the last part first, and then I want you to repeat that because I have two really important things to say about that. I sat down and I said to my kids, no matter what you do, somebody's not going to like it. I see some of the things that are posted on Facebook. They're controversial. Some people think you walk on water. Some people think you're outlandish, right? No matter what you do, somebody's not going to like it. So you may as well do what you want. Here's the question. Before you do anything, stop and ask yourself, what might the consequences of your actions be? And do I want to live with those consequences? So when they're little, you start teaching them, if you don't share your toys, you didn't share your toys, what happened? Oh, your friend doesn't want to play with you. Okay. Maybe next time you'll share, or maybe you won't. So that's the most powerful piece. Okay. Your kid gets to high school and the designated driver had a drink. You find out, this happened to my daughter. Do you want your kids to ask, what is that person going to think about me if I don't get in the car? Or what will happen to me if I do? Okay? Come on, everybody's cutting school. Let's not go to school today. You want your kids saying, well, what will they think if I don't go with them? Or what might the consequences be? And sometimes they'll err on going. But my kids are so trained to ask themselves that question. And here's the thing, parents. You need to get rid of that belief. Because here's the key. If the person doesn't think well of you on the left, but the person on the right thinks you're great, you are the same person. Nothing has changed about you. When I got rid of that belief, I call it my Martin Luther King Jr. moment. I was free at last. I am free. I know that some of the things I'm saying are going to fly in the face of some of you, but my commitment is to give what you just said, my truth. That's all I can do. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's my truth. So if you stop worrying about what the neighbors are going to think of your kid, and you start empowering your child to look inside for self-discovery, they're going to make mistakes. I promise. And you know what my favorite question is, Vishen? When I ask my clients, after they get rid of the belief, what makes me good enough is having other people think well of me, I say to them, do you know what the neighbors thought of you when you were little? Everybody said, no, you can't possibly know. Even if they tell you they love you, you don't know that that's true. Mm-hmm. Has it made any difference in your life whatsoever?
Not at all.
Not one person has ever said, oh, totally. It doesn't. And we actually sell our kids out. Their well-being, worrying about people who will probably half the time never see again. Be polite, use your manners, don't do that, don't run around, don't do this, don't do that. You go to somebody's house. Stop giving them that message.
So you said something earlier. You said something earlier about why it may not be right to praise our kid or celebrate when they accomplish something, say finishing their homework on time, because that causes them to get hooked to praise and validation from others. Okay? And you said that this makes the kids grow up to be adults who care what other people think and care what you think. Approval junkies. But if we aren't supposed to celebrate our kids' accomplishments, what do we do? Like, how do we reinforce good behavior? Finishing homework on time, eating well. Did I just say something wrong?
You don't want to reinforce good behavior. You want to help thinking, Vishen, and you know this better than anyone I know. Thinking, speaking is very powerful. How you think, as long as you keep believing of good behavior, you're gonna come from good behavior, as opposed to how do I empower my kid to do the things that will make them all that they could be in life. Doing your homework will get you the grades that will open doors for you later on in life. How do I get to help them do that, as opposed to good behavior? Because every time you say that, I go, I don't know what you mean. How's the kid going to know what you mean? And you don't want them. Let me tell you something. When I see a kid that's behaving and sitting in a restaurant like this or sitting someplace like this, I get worried. That scares me. You know why? Because that kid has already concluded that what you want is more important than what I want. I don't want my kid to have that belief. Now, I'm not saying, and please, please, please no, I am not saying let your kids run around like maniacs or do what they want or they have them not do their homework. That is not what I'm saying. We need training. I bet my life when people come to work for you, they get trained in the job that they're going to do. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Good. If I came to you and I said, hey, Vishen, I got a job for you. You're going to be responsible for the emotional, physical, spiritual, intellectual development of a human being. Would you say to me, piece of cake? And yet parents don't have training. It's ridiculous. So going back to the homework example, there's a lot of skills and tools that I teach. I obviously don't have time in an hour to teach them, but I'm giving you everything I possibly can give you. Again, get to the source of the problem. What is it about homework that you don't like? I went through school bored out of my mind. I am not an auditory linear learner, right? I'm a very visual learner. And I hated school. And so I had beliefs about learning, that learning is hard. Learning is not fun. I went to my kids' school and they learned math with giant dice and Cuisenaire rods. Now, not everybody has the luxury of sending their kids to private school. Totally get that. First of all, validating feelings. You really don't want to do your homework. I so get it. I do. But there are certain things that as human beings we have to do in order to have the life we want. Now, I'll give you an example. I kept asking my kids to do something for me, and they kept going, oh, I forgot to feed the cat, or I forgot to do this, or I forgot to do that. So one night, they all came into the kitchen for dinner, and there was no dinner, and they looked at me, and they said, Mom, where's dinner? And I said, I forgot. Oh, God, I'm sorry, I have to run out to a meeting. Bye. I left the house. Second night, I did the same thing. Third night, they came into the kitchen, and there was dinner. And I said, now we're going to have a conversation. Can you see how your forgetting to do something impacts other people? So if you forget to do your chores, that impacts Mommy and I. Because whatever. Go ahead.
But couldn't doing that create a belief in the child that my mom doesn't care about me?
Not if you do it once or twice, and everything else you do shows that you care about your child.
And then at the end of that, you explain why you did it, to teach them, to guide them, to not create.
For them to conclude, my behavior has an impact on other people.
Got it. Such as forgetting to feed the cat. Now,
exactly.
Now, my question earlier, Shelley, was that how do we praise our kids and celebrate what they do without creating approval junkies?
Great. Fabulous. Thank you for reminding me. I never said don't celebrate your kids' accomplishments. And I'm going to I'll give you a good example of what happened. And there's a difference between praise and acknowledgement. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was bold, but I just read someplace that, what was it? I'll get back to it. It was about acknowledgement. That's what it is. When kids were acknowledged for effort as opposed to achievements, they became more successful later on in life. Okay? Efforts, not achievement. Mm-hmm. But I want to go back to celebrate. So Morty and I didn't want Brittany to have this belief, what makes me good enough on my achievements. So Brittany was a competitive swimmer. And she would say, I had a lousy race. And we'd say, oh, you're so disappointed because you worked so hard in practice that you really wished you'd swam better. I got it. Leave it alone. They have a coach. They don't need you. Just get it, validate their feelings. You might want to say, but I'll tell you, it looks like you were having a good time in the water, or, again, acknowledge their effort. You practiced all week. Keep practicing. I know you'll improve. She gets home. She comes up to us. She goes, I won a ribbon. And we said, wow, that's so great that you won a ribbon, but we watched how your stroke had improved and blah, 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 blah. She goes home. She calls her friend, and we hear her luckily on the phone. And she said, Ginevra, I won a ribbon. My parents don't care, but I'm really excited. And we came in and we sat down and we realized you cannot put a child in competitive sports and tell them that winning is not a big deal, because that's what competitive sports is. What you want to teach your children, and what we spoke to Brittany about, was you do not want your child defined by their accomplishments. That's the point. You want your child to be loved and respected and admired because of who they are, Not because if they're not, then it's when you're on top, everybody loves you, and when you're not, everybody doesn't love you. Who wants relationships like that? So we said to Brittany, sweetie, we are so excited that you won a ribbon. And I know how hard you worked in practice to win that ribbon. And it's great. We just don't want you to think that when you don't win a ribbon, you're less than as a person. That's all. Mm-hmm. So that distinction, but celebrating, we celebrated her wins and we used to go out for, I had a lousy swim, ice cream cones. And here's what developed. When Brittany went into high school, we moved to California. She had never seen water polo before. And so all the kids had been playing since they were little. And she had a belief that because I started later than all these kids, I could never be as good as them. And she sat down with my husband and he helped her eliminate that belief. The next day she gets into the water. She scored 3 goals and an assist. Her coach went, "Who is that?" Masked water polo player. But here's the point. She got out of the water and she said, "Oh my God, that was so awesome. That was so awesome. All right, I'll see you later. I'm going with my friends." And she left. That was exactly what happened when she came out and she said, "Oh my God, I had the worst swim. I can't believe it. I sucked. Okay, I'm going with my friends."
Right.
That's what you want for your children. Mm-hmm. I'm not defined by my wins. I'm not defined by my losses. I have them.
I see the distinction. Now, the final question, Shelley, is how do we keep our kids from forming the beliefs, I'm not good enough and I'm not important, which you said are among the most common beliefs that afflict us all?
Totally. I'm not important is easy. Give them attention. On my tombstone, it's going to say, put down your iPhone. Either look at your iPhone or look at your child. Do not do both. And I want everybody to do, I haven't done many exercises in this call, but I want to do one. Everybody imagine that you're talking to me. You're having a conversation with me. And all of a sudden I pick up my phone and I start going like this. What do you feel?
Right. I get that.
You feel not important. Well, what you have to say is not important. Or I'm not enough. Or something, because this looks more important than that. Some of you work. Some of you travel. If you travel, Skype is a blessing. You call your child at the end of the day, and you say, and if you're going on a business dinner, you say, I must go back to the room to call my child. And you call your child and you say, Vishen, what was the best thing that happened to you today? Always ask questions that are specific. Did you have a good day? Yes. What happened? Nothing. How was math? Okay. No. Was there anything that happened today that surprised you? Did you learn anything great? Ask them, show interest in their lives. And traveling will not be the big deal it is for most of my clients whose fathers didn't have Skype and didn't know to call them. So I'm not important is strictly attention. And being spoken to with a little bit of dignity.
Right.
I'm not good enough is a little harder. Because I'm not good enough comes from criticism. They spill, they drop, they break. And what parents do is, I wish I could talk to every pregnant parent and every father-to-be and say, your kids are going to spill and drop and break and not do what you want them to do and run around restaurants, so don't act surprised when they do it. Be conscious that if you criticize your child as opposed to saying, like with my grandson, sometimes he hits me. He's 2 years old. And I take his little hands and I look in his eyes and I go, Mimi loves you, right? More than anything in the world. It is not okay to hit. Hitting hurts. You cannot hit Mimi. That's very different than you're a brat. Or why are you hitting? I've seen parents go, don't hit. How many times do I have to tell you not to hit? Stop criticizing. Learn how to use I messages. I don't like it when you. I wish you would. You can't conclude anything negative out of that. Why can't you, my last client today, didn't anybody ever tell you how to sweep a floor? Why can't you sweep the floor right? Stop doing that, and your kid will not have that belief, I'm not good enough. That's
So
the
start
short.
with I feel, rather than why can't you, or why did you do that? I feel.
Or
Start
how
with,
could you have done it differently?
right.
Or
Wow.
this is a great learning opportunity. You know, people yell at kids for not mowing the lawn, for leaving their, bicycle out in the rain. Teach them. They don't know what you know.
Thank you, Shelley. Shelley, this was a very, very, very eye-opening interview, and the people listening would notice that I was quiet most of the time during this interview because I realized I've learned so much. And at certain points, I, like many people listening, went, "Oh God, I've done that. I can't believe I did that to my kids." And if you're feeling that way, know that I feel that way as well. Like I'm making so many mental notes right now of little things I have to change about the way I parent.
And there's no such thing as a perfect parent. I
Right.
was not a perfect parent. There's no, so you cannot be, but you can just do the best you can do and be conscious of what your kid, go back and clean it up.
Right.
Your kid's never too old for you to go back and say, hey, you know what? I learned something.
Yeah, I'm glad I have an 8-year-old son, but my daughter is not even 2 yet, so I'm going to do a better job with her.
You have an opportunity.
So thank you so much, Shelley. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you all for listening. And if you want to explore this particular topic further, check out the trainings by Ivan Meissner on harmony versus balance and how to really, really, really create harmony in your life by paying more attention to the people who matter to you. And check out the training on parenting, Ninja Parenting by Rhea Lala. Thank you so much, Shelley. It was
Thanks for
wonderful
having me.
catching up with you and talking to you and
fun.
hearing you share those amazing insights.
Thank you.